Hi! Happy almost Easter, if you celebrate it. I don't really, but I thought it would be fun to do an egg painting video. So for my wedding, I painted over 100 wooden eggs as favors for the guests. And that was really exhausting because I did it in like a couple months, like a month or two, but it was also really fun. And since then, I've painted a bunch more. I have a whole box here of eggs. And I wanted to add to this collection. So what I thought I would do is paint a couple of eggs that have a fruit pattern. So I have a lemon egg here. I have a strawberry egg. I have an orange egg. I have a plum egg. I have an apple egg. But I thought what could be added to this collection is maybe a blackberry egg. And if I have time, maybe also a raspberry egg. And if I have time for a third, I don't even know. Maybe something wild and unexpected like a salmonberry egg or a thimbleberry egg or a golden apple egg. We'll play it by ear. So for this video, I might just end up doing one or two. We'll see how long it takes me. Now I have some eggs that have been pre-painted with bases. So I'm gonna find those and see what the options are. I have a silver egg. I have a couple blues, these weird sort of periwinkle eggs. I painted this one copper, but it kind of has a flaw at the top, so I don't think I'm going to use it. What I'm thinking is this silver egg, I think would make a good blackberry egg. And then maybe this would be a good blueberry egg. That could be cool. Okay. So blackberry, blueberry. And then I said raspberry, didn't I? But none of these are really calling me raspberry. I kind of think this would be a cool salmonberry egg. Maybe this will be our third wild card. Okay, let's begin. So I'm going to start by showing you the sketches for each egg. I would normally start with a pencil sketch of some kind, but with these eggs, the pencil is not easy to erase. So I just kind of make the sketch with a pen, and if I make a mistake, which I do, I just have to kind of deal with it and make do. And just wait till egg 3 because I make a number of mistakes there. And I really have to say that I do not like drawing these little stupid circles in the blackberries. They are so annoying, and I did them differently each time. In the end, it doesn't really matter because I will end up doing the whole sketch again. That's the thing with these eggs, is you do a sketch, you paint over it or draw over it, and then you do the sketch over again. But it's, these little circular blobs, berries, if you will, are super annoying to draw. And then with no warning at all, we are on to the blueberry egg. The blueberry egg, I am just super making it up as I go along because I've never drawn blueberries before, and I actually hate blueberries, but I think they're really cute, and I like their little flowers that are shaped like little bells. Although I don't love how these flowers turned out in this sketch. They're like kind of awkward looking, and they could be better. And I think they turned out okay in the end, but like it was a real journey to get there. So blueberries, they grow in these weird clusters, so I'm trying to make it a little more orderly. I think it's cute. And it goes through a bit of an awkward growing phase, but I think it turns out okay. And then we are on to the salmonberry. And by this point, I had sketched 2 sketches, and I was tired of drawing flowers and certainly tired of drawing those horrific little circles. And so I make some weird choices here and some odd mistakes that end up causing me a lot of grief later. What the heck? So ugly. I say that is ugly, but I'm about to make it so much worse. I try to shorten it and then turn the rest of the petal into a leaf, and it's just gonna make it worse. So now I'm flustered and drawing my like little foldy petals not very well. I kind of get my groove back drawing these little salmonberries, but then here you see a big mistake. I make this freaking leaf so big and weirdly shaped, and then I draw the little prong things backwards. So I try to fix it, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. So at this point, I was not sure I was even going to come back to the Salmonberry Egg, and I decided to move on to painting the Blackberry Egg. I'm putting some red into the younger, smaller blackberries, you know, to give them the sort of underripe look, and then mixing it with the purple. I mean, the blackberries are pretty black, but my blackberries are purple. I think it ends up looking okay. But as you can see, it's covering up the sketch. And all of these are going to go through this phase of looking awkward before they look good when I do the final drawing. Now let's get some scratchy petal ASMR. Is not that satisfying. And then I'm putting in some pink into the middle of these petals, which I think looks super cute. I don't really know how accurate that is to what blackberry petals look like. And then when I'm done with all the flowers, I decide to do these leaves, and I end up putting these like darker stripes on the leaves so that I can fill in the center with a lighter green to give them some dimension, which I think ends up looking pretty cute. But I'm making a huge mess, and I'm so impatient that I can't wait for anything to dry before painting any other part of it, so I just keep making more of a mess and getting the egg even more filthy and messy. No. Then I make a weird decision to paint some of these like vines brown, which is honestly not a good move. Ew. And I immediately cover them up with green again. And then I decide to put some gold in the middle of the flowers, which I think always looks nice, but for some reason my pen was like not working very well, so the gold is not particularly saturated or as shiny as it could be, but whatever, it works okay. So there we have it. I know it looks terrible, but it is about to get better, because as soon as I start outlining it again, it will clean up all those edges and it will start to look pretty. So I think I'm just gonna show you just me doing this one flower and then speed up the rest of it, because you will get the point of it really quickly. But you can see that even this one flower is already looking a billion times better than it was before, putting in some of those little petally lines. And then, yeah, look at that. So much prettier. It looks like a different flower altogether. And now let's speed really quickly through the rest of these flowers. Now, I decided to put some blue highlights on these blackberries, which I think worked really well. But as usual, I am not waiting for anything to dry before I continue painting. So I left smudges all over the egg and had to clean them up again. Okay, so again, let's speed through the outlining of the berries and the leaves. And there we have it. That looks pretty good so far, but
I'm comparing it to this strawberry egg that I did before, and I'm realizing it needs something in the background. So I gave it these like silver dots that like just give it a little bit of dimension, rather than doing the swirls and the dots like I did on the other one, which I think would make this one a little bit too busy. So yay, now it's time to put on some goop, which would be more satisfying if like I was more in the frame and my camera wasn't shaking, but yeah, I'm giving it a glossy finish. Now, welcome to the blueberry zone. I'm starting with blue for my blueberries. I don't actually have a color that is really kind of accurate to that grayish slate blue that blueberries have, but I think this works fine, giving them some dimension and some highlights, but I immediately despise those highlights, so I remove them and I'm like, that looks good. So I fill in all the other blueberries to match that first set. And then I decided to do the leaves, doing a lighter outline on the outside and then darker on the inside, which I think works well. And so far things are going smoothly. The blueberries definitely could use some dimension and distinction. They just look like globs right now, but the leaves are turning out pretty well. And then we get to the flowers, and they could be better, let's be honest. It doesn't help that the white is so like transparent. You have to do multiple coats. So I decided to put some pink in to help them out, but like, I don't know. Something about the way that I drew them I don't love it. So I gave up for a while and decided to put some highlights back on the blueberries to give them dimension, to make them look like they're not just an undifferentiated mass of blue. And it's better. It's definitely better. And so I decided to go for the outline and see how it looks once the outline is there, because that it always looks better once it's outlined, and that'll tell me if any improvements need to be made to the actual coloring. And I will just say I don't like the flowers with the outline any more than I did without the outline. Oh, and there I decide to remove the highlights that I just added. And then once the outline is all done, it does look better for sure. And I make a weird decision that I think it pans out. I decide to add some fireflies, just a few fireflies. I don't know if you can even tell that they are supposed to be fireflies and not just like flies. But whatever. I paint them silver. I know fireflies would probably be gold, but don't look at that. That's a spoiler. Anyway, the fireflies I decided to make silver just because I feel like it goes with the color scheme better. And yeah, I think the fireflies do add something that was missing before, especially once I add those little blue wings. They make them kind of pop. And then I do add some swirls to this one because it was still missing something. And now everybody's favorite part, adding a glorious goopy finish to make it shiny and perfect. Oh god, here we go. So I'm finally coloring the Salmonberry Egg, and I make the decision to start with the hideous part, because if I can't fix the hideous part, there's no point in doing the rest of it. And if I can fix the hideous part, then all the better. So my idea of fixing it at first is just to color in the leaves. And after I do that, it's not really better. They just look bigger. So I decide to outline them and see if that helps. I've managed to make the like little thorns, it's not the right word, the corrugated edges, also not the right term, whatever. I've made them point the right way. And so I decide good enough for now and decide to take a break and do some berries. Much more satisfying, easier. All you have to do is just make a bunch of little orange dots. So at this point, I decide, well, if I can make the flower look nice, maybe it won't really matter what the leaves look like in that one hideous place. So I decide to paint the flowers. And I had no idea that salmonberry flowers were neon pink. I've lived with salmonberries my whole life. I grew up with them growing all around me. And I always saw the berries, but I've never noticed the flowers. And I think they're really pretty. Anyway, I'm doing okay with the flower until I decide to put these like little weird veins on the flower, and that looks disgusting, so I immediately get rid of that and then outline the flower. I do think that these light green spines that I put on the leaves actually do end up being the thing that ultimately saves these hideous giant leaves, because suddenly they're not looking so bad anymore. Now they have some details that fill up all that space that I left blank. Now the ultimate problem is when I do all the other leaves, they don't look as good compared to this leaf. So ultimately this leaf becomes the star of the whole thing, somewhat disproportionately. Anyway, we've spent so much time on this one flower. I think it's looking pretty good. So we're just going to speed through the rest of the flowers and the rest of the leaves. So the flowers are painted, the leaves are painted. It's looking okay, and so I decide to do the outline, most of which, again, I kind of skip over here because I think by this point you get the point of what the outline looks like, although I'm definitely thickening up these branches more than I do on the others. And then I put some red dots, some red shading in the salmonberries, which I think really actually gives them a lot of dimension and makes them look more translucent than they did before, and more like real berries and not just stupid red dots. And then outlining the flowers also is kind of bringing them to life. And suddenly I'm not hating this egg as much as I was before. The flowers are coming together, the berries are coming together, the leaves are looking pretty good, especially that one gigantic leaf, and I'm feeling pretty positive about my progress. I'm adding some highlights in there. Everything is looking pretty good. And then I make another weird decision. I decide that there's too much empty space in between the flowers and the berries and stuff, and I decide to draw some bees. And I grew up drawing bees. I've drawn bees my whole life because my dad was a beekeeper. And these are hideous. These are not great bees. I think it's because I couldn't decide between like a cartoon bee and a realistic bee, and I kind of ended up doing neither. They're not great. I added some gold to them and some white highlights, and ultimately I do think that the effect of having them there is better than before they were there, but I do wish they were better. And finally, I'm gonna put a top coat on. I start with putting it over the bees because I just painted them and I really shouldn't be putting a top coat on them anyway, so I really have to seal them up delicately. And then unfortunately I don't I forgot to record the rest of the top coat, so it's just gonna end up not being shown. Sorry about that. But anyway, that's all 3 of the eggs painted. So now let's look at how they turned out.